Hello everyone and welcome again to ACCA's Fireside Chat. Today we've got with us Mr. Parvez Abbasi, who's a very senior corporate professional, and currently he is the director for the National Incubation Center and also a partner for Team Up Advisory. Parvez, thank you so much for being with us this morning. It's a lovely morning in Islamabad. It's raining and really happy to have you here with us.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Excellent, excellent. So we'll kick off by getting to know Parvez a little bit more intimately. We'll like to hear from you. So where did your journey begin? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? What was your college like? What was the world like when you were growing up?
Sure. So I was born in Murray, not too far from here.
Lovely.
I had a very early childhood, just for about a year and a half in Pakistan. And then my father was already working in the UK. So my mother and my siblings, we relocated in very mid 1960s.
To the UK?
To the UK. Okay. And basically my early childhood, etc., we grew up in the UK there.
Okay.
My schooling also happened to be there. And I graduated from a university as a telecommunications engineer.
Oh, lovely.
And my first job as a telecommunication engineer was working with British Telecom.
So, Parvez, which part of the UK did you go to school?
I grew up in a place called Northwest London.
Okay.
It's on the Bakerloo line, on the underground.
Okay.
It's an area which is basically mixed racial area.
Okay.
So we had not only your typical English population, but we have an African population, we had an Indian population, we had a Pakistani. Pakistanis were a very small minority, but we had a mix of different races.
Okay. And what was it like? Was it very open? What was the world like back then? I mean,
I think for those people growing up in the 60s and 70s in the UK, it wasn't one life. So predominantly we had two lives.
Okay.
We had one life which was inside the house with our parents,
okay.
and one life outside the house with our friends.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that as soon as we opened the front door and left the house, we changed. And as soon as we opened the door and came back home, we changed. So this was a kind of a dual life that we led. Why was this dual life there? Because we couldn't really understand. We were confused growing up in London that are we British or are we Pakistani? Because in our house, our parents made sure that we were told we were Pakistani. We are Pakistani. But when we went to school, the teachers were telling us that we are British. And therefore, there was this confusion. And therefore, within this confusion, the best thing we could do is act in both roles.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that a lot of my friends who've been raised abroad, I mean, they have a very similar story to tell. So how did you juggle between the two?
I think one of the things is I'm very fortunate that I was a born Gemini.
Okay.
So therefore, we're able to have two different personalities.
Okay.
So it's like anything. I'm a very big believer in nature. An adoption of nature. Nature is the ability to adapt to your environment. And in Darwin's theory, for example, it's not the fastest or the fittest, it's the one who can adapt the most. So when human beings are living, for example, in a mountainous area or in a jungle area or in a seaside area, in the Arctic where it's snowing all the time, they adapt according to the environment that they're in. Similarly, we had to adapt. So as I mentioned, when we were home, we spoke in Putwari with our parents because that's the language that they came with, that was their mother tongue. And outside, of course, we had to speak in English. And we had to keep up with our English friends as well. Yeah. So basically, as I said, it was a mindset. And I think this mindset is really good because it allows you to think differently. Research has now proven that people, young children who have multiple languages, so people, for example, even in Pakistan, if they speak Pashto and they speak Urdu, and if they speak another language, the chances are that their level of intelligence is much more.
Because you can think in so many different languages, and each language has its own kind of the way you can express yourself.
Exactly. My first entrepreneurial venture was 13 years old.
Oh wow!
So we had at school we had a tuck shop, and the tuck shop basically was run by the students. So basically, they gave me a little space with a locker, and I used to buy, chips and crisps and biscuits and drinks and that kind of stuff. And then during the breaks, I would sell them to the students.
Wow.
And that was my first entrepreneurial experience. Unfortunately, some of the kids, they broke into it and they stole all the goods.
Wow.
That was an experience as well.
Of course.
So all of these experiences, while they may be bad experiences at the time, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And therefore, those experiences helped me later on in life. And what's the worst case scenario? Maybe I lost 20, 30 pounds during that experience. But the whole experience changed my perspective, my life, the way I see things, etc.
On this note, Parvez, we speak about, you're obviously, mashallah, you're a brand unto yourself. We speak about success. But before we get to that, failures.
Mm-hmm.
And what have you learned from them? And what can you share with us and everybody that they can value from it?
Yeah. So I just want to say that there is no such thing as failure. It doesn't exist. Everybody has the opportunity not to fail. Failure is only when you stop trying. So to give you an example, and we use these examples, when you look at a child, a 9-month-old, 10-month-old child who is about to walk, what happens? Do they just get up and start walking? Or do they get up and fall? So when they fall, isn't that a failure? But if they don't, and if we encourage that failure, so often we say, okay, when we look at a little child and he falls, we encourage them to get up again. We smile, well done, we congratulate them, we clap, etc. So we should really celebrate our failures. And I think that there is no such thing as a failure if we learn from that experience. This is my view. As per traditional failure, all successes are built on those failures. And I've had more than my fair share of them. But as I said, I don't see them as failures. Even if I've lost money, even if the work hasn't happened, even if I've managed, in some cases, which is sad to say, lost relationships, I've tried to learn from them.
So after your university, you went on to BT.
Correct.
And you were working for them. How was that? And how would you since you worked in the corporate sector in the UK, how would you compare working in the UK, the environment over there, as opposed to, you spent many years in telecommunications in Pakistan as well. You were one of the pioneers. How would you compare the two experiences?
So the two experiences, like chalk and cheese. I mean, there's a world apart. I believe that the European concept and work ethic is a whole lot different to what it is in Pakistan. So just to give you an example, I'm very fortunate, I believe, to have had that early grooming and work ethic in the UK. As a result of that, when you invited me, for example, today, as per my experience and working, I tried to come here half an hour earlier.
Of course, yeah.
So that
we were shocked.
half an hour earlier allows me to find parking space, to plan my day, to send out whatever messages or emails I needed to before coming to today's talk. Whereas in Pakistan, if it was a typical Pakistani, forgive me for saying this,
That's okay.
They would be leaving their home at 10 o'clock.
Oh, yes.
And then they would say, okay, oh, I'm sorry, we had traffic on the way, or we had some other issues as well. So this is a very typical Pakistani thing.
Yeah. So moving on from BT, then you decided to come to Pakistan. And what made you take that decision? Was it an opportunity that came up, or was there an intent that you wanted to come and work?
I wasn't really happy in the UK, at work at least.
Okay.
The work was, British Telecom was a big company.
Yes.
It was a state-owned company and going through privatization at the time. Thousands and thousands of employees, and it was a great company. They paid really well as well. The problem was that the people I worked with, they were in their late 40s. So I joined a team, and in that team there were like 8-9 people, and all of them were in their late 40s. So when we had a tea break, they would be talking about their mortgages, their kids, those kind of things.
Yeah.
I couldn't relate to that. And I think in hindsight, it was a great job to retire into. But if it's your first job, then it's probably not the right place to be. So I was struggling with my colleagues. There was just an age gap. The second part, what happened was, in the late 80s, I saw a television ad, and it's a long ad. It's a Motorola ad, but they showed a mobile phone. That was the first time I was ever exposed to a mobile phone, and I fell in love with mobile phones. So I decided that I wanted to do mobile phones, and I asked British Telecom. They had a mobile phone division, and I asked them, "Can I move? Can I, move to this division?" Unfortunately, that didn't happen either. Again, I didn't have the right friends or maybe the right place. So I left the company. And I started up my own business in the UK in the mobile phone business. At the same time, now we're looking at the 1990, 91. Pakistan, Benazir ki hukumat thi, they decided to have mobile phone in network in Pakistan. And as a result of that, two companies were given a license. One was a company called Millicom, and the other was a company called Cable and Wireless. Okay. So what I did was I reached out to these companies, and I said to them that, so because of my Mango experience, because of my student experience, at the same time I was experiencing challenges in the UK as well. So things were not going right for me. So again, it's a combination of all of these events. And I decided that I would like to come to Pakistan. Here was an opportunity to join the telecom sector at a very early stage. And I can get away from the challenges and the problems that I was having. And at the same time, I would be able to do something that I wanted to do, And in my mind, I had this worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario? When I talked to my parents, when I talked to my friends, I talked to my siblings, everybody thought I was crazy. Why on earth would you want to go to Pakistan? Huh? And even, my friends disowned me. My family, my father, God rest his soul, he was so concerned that when I did come to Pakistan, he said, okay, if you're going to go for a holiday, spend 4 weeks there and come back. Yeah. And then when I showed them I only had a one-way ticket, people got really nervous. Wow. So I came to Pakistan, and then my dad actually sent some of my friends after me. And because as you know, if you don't listen to your parents, you're going to listen to your friends. And they said to me, Parvez, you have a holiday, whatever you want to do, but come back. So I had a resolve. I said, no, I'm going to stay here. And in my mind, I had a 2-year plan. If I can stay in Pakistan for 2 years, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'll be bankrupt. Financially, I'll have no money, which I didn't have anyway. I'll beg or borrow somebody enough money to buy a ticket to go back to London. And I think at least I'll have that credibility that somebody will give me enough money to get a ticket. Or I'll just say to my dad, you were right, I lost, please send me a ticket. So in my mind, this was the worst case scenario. And when I go back to London, it's business as usual. I'll get a job and we'll carry on that. Yeah. But at least I'll be over this. And later on in life, I learned, and we read, of course, try to learn that we regret the things that we didn't do rather than the ones that we did do. And this has stuck with me. So I always say, don't have regrets. Do it. What's the worst case scenario?
Still, do you have any regrets?
I don't have any regrets. Nothing. The reason why I don't have any regrets is because this is destiny. And you say that it could have been better, but I also say it could have been worse. Yeah. And when we look around ourselves, there are people who are much more challenged, be it for whatever reason, and therefore we should be grateful for what we have.
Yeah. That's a very I think an intelligent way to look at life for myself. So moving on from telecommunications, NIC. I think you are the face of NIC. You have been, I think, helping, supporting so many young people with their startups, their businesses. What really motivated you to get into, the incubation side of entrepreneurship and startups and working with them? And then we'll also speak about Team Up.
Sure.
So how did that happen? What was the main motivation for you?
Yeah. After the experience at Mobiling Jazz, I started my own company, called Mobile Zone. Okay. We have basically, what happened was, and again, this is through experience. So during my visits to the UK, because I went to see my family and friends, there was a company called the Car Phone Warehouse. Okay. It started by a gentleman called Charles Dunstan. And he started this company when I also started my business in the UK as well. So he started from a very small place and he became very big. His model was that he would have a very large shop, and in that shop you would have all the brands, all of the mobile handsets, and you would have all of the connections. So you can buy any connection under one roof with whichever model you wanted. So in Pakistan, this didn't exist.
So you wanted to implement that?
Yeah, so I just copied it.
Yeah.
So I thought, why don't we take that idea and copy it here?
Yeah.
In those days, if you remember, you had to buy a SIM card or a connection from the company, and then you had to go to the mobile phone shop to buy a phone. And mobile phone shops were very small at the time, and they were just run by individual retailers, and there was no concept of after-sale service or warranty. So what happened was, if you were to buy a phone and you asked the gentleman who owned the shop, what is the warranty, what is the after-sale service, he would say something like, आप मेरे दुकान के अंदर इसको चला लें, घंटा 2 घंटे 5 घंटे, दरवाजे से बाहर निकलेंगे तो मेरी जिम्मेदारी नहीं है. So that's basically the quality of after sales service. So we came in and we thought, why not give people a 12-month after sales warranty service? And people abused that.
I still remember your warranty.
Yeah. People abused that. They took advantage of it. जैसे नया model आता था, they would put water in their phone, they would surge the phone with electricity, etc., etc. But as a result of that, and we replaced the phones. We would either fix them or replace them. The brand value went to the roof. People, they started to pay a premium for our product because they felt there was more value in it. And again, that was a learning opportunity. As I said, being in the right place at the right time is just coincidence. When the wave comes, everything goes with the wave. Acha, bura, jo bhi hota hai, wave ke saath chalta hai. And in Pakistan, we moved from less than 1 million subscribers to 60 million subscribers. And a lot of those handsets, in fact, 70% of them, we brought in from abroad. So I had the privilege of probably selling more than 50 million handsets in Pakistan throughout this experience. So there's a little bit of understanding. But the good news is that for personal reasons, one of my cousins was getting married, and Baraat jo hai wo Kabul ja rahi thi. Now I'm talking about 2004, 3-4. And when we were in Kabul for this wedding for 3 or 4 days, I noticed something. We were at the hotel reception, and all of the very VIPs, he's a very senior guy, all the VIPs, the ministers, they were inside the hotel, and outside were all the drivers. So I went outside for a smoke, and I noticed that all of the drivers, they were using a Nokia 3310. And then when I went inside, I saw all the ministers and all the VIPs, they were also using a Nokia 3310. And I realized that एक time ऐसा आएगा जब ये कहेंगे कि यार हमारे पास variety होनी चाहिए, differences होनी चाहिए. Ironically, when we looked at the phones, in the back we saw the mobile zone seal. 40% of the phones that were being sold in Afghanistan were from our company, smuggled through Peshawar. And we had nothing to do with it. So we decided, why don't we capitalize on this opportunity? People want the product, let's set up. So we moved to Afghanistan, we moved to Bangladesh, we started trading out of the UAE. We had over $1 billion transactional revenues every year. And everything was really great. So that gave me more entrepreneurial experience. So the corporate business world experience, how to manage a business.
And then your own sort of experience in the business.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is that this business experience was with the Memons, the community that we have. And those people actually helped me to understand how to do real business. So sitting in a corporate office, in an air-conditioned office with a nice presentation is one thing. But then I realized that our real customers, they're nothing what we imagined. That's when you go to Karachi and Sadr and meet the people and go into the rural areas. That's when you find the real customers. So that was a great experience for me as well. So then we had a global financial crisis.
Yes.
In 2008, if you remember.
Yes.
We got hit between the rock and a hard place. So the devaluation of Pakistan currency, we went from 60 rupees, which was quite stable for the previous 6 years, to 90 rupees to the dollar in less than 100 days. So we were buying in dollars, selling in rupees, paying back in dollars. So it was a very big challenge. We lost a lot of money. As a result of that, I had to sell out to my partners. And basically, I decided that I didn't want to do a business which was so capital intensive. I wanted to do a business which has greater margin and lower cost. So thinking about what to do, and this is where, again, pushing the envelope, I realized that doing consultancy work would actually give you a higher margin and lower cost. So in consulting, we started consulting for different organizations, again, telcos, banks, etc. And the beauty of this was there was no cost. All I had to do was drive to their office. And once I was in their office, they would give me space. They'd give me a desk, they'd give me a chair. They were kind enough to give me a coffee and a tea and a biscuit. And I would just work for them. And at the end, my margins were now moving from mobile zone 5-6% to 95%. But that again gave me insights, learnings. It showed me the challenges of organizations, that how people within organizations work in silos. They don't share information deliberately, and that's the irony of it. They actually avoid sharing information because knowledge is power. And then I realized that the vision of the founder, whoever this person is to provide a high quality service and to make a financial return. Makes sense, right? But the customer facing interacting people who are supposed to deliver that vision, they have no understanding of what that vision is. And between them, there are senior management, middle management, and so on. So the vision, the mission, the concept is totally diluted and lost. So what I thought was, why not take that vision and trickle it down at each stage of the organization? And then also, because the junior staff doesn't have access to the decision makers, why not take that, be the voice of the junior staff to the senior management and say to them, and because we were able to convince them and they would listen, is why don't we do this? And that change really impacted those organizations.
So which one came first? Was it Team Up or was it the National Incubation Center?
So Team Up is a company that Zuhair, my very good friend and co-founder, as you know, he was the former CEO and great guy as well. What happened was we were living a retired life. In fact, I went back to the UK from Pakistan as a retired. I was going to spend time with my siblings, my friends, blah, blah, blah. When I got there, I was initially very happy for the first week or 10 days, but then it became very depressing because everybody's very busy there. They don't have time for you. So Zuhair and me, we caught up. He was in the UK. His kids were grown up. They were also in university. And we thought, what is it that we can do for the rest of our life? And we decided that, God has been very kind. Pakistan has given us a lot. So even though we were in UK, we wanted to do something for Pakistan. And we felt that the young generation was the key, because to make change, young people are able to initiate change. Older people don't like change. And the second thing is, because we come from a technology background, we knew the power of technology to change people's lives. So we thought that why don't we get people to change their, using technology, improve the quality of their lives, and thus creating jobs not only for themselves, but for other people as well. So we were now engaging with university students, people who were young.
This is now in the UK or
here
in
Pakistan. Okay. But it was a virtual environment. Okay. It wasn't a physical environment as such. So we would go to universities, to NAS, to ComSats, to Barrier, and so on and so forth, talk to students, give them some guidance. We would have some people, very select number of people, maybe 4 or 5, coming to us and sharing their ideas and basically working with them, etc., etc. And I can share with you that this was a learning opportunity. That when we went to universities, we found that young people, very bright, very inspired, very hardworking, creative, etc., but they lacked basic business sense. They lacked network. They lacked financial resources. They lacked financial discipline. And then we realized that if we were to team up some of these older people with the younger people, then we can actually create a win-win situation. So what's in it for the older people? Once you retire, what do you do for the rest of your day after you've had breakfast? You need to do something. Imagine a knowledge and experience that a 60-year-old person has. He's not necessarily ready to retire. So we brought these people together and we were operating in what we call a virtual environment. At the same time, the government of Pakistan was looking at an opportunity to find a solution. We happened to have some contacts in the Ministry of IT. We advised them, suggested to them that why don't you consider doing it in such a way where we can create best practices, international best practices, etc. They asked us to submit a proposal. We submitted a proposal based on international best practices and also the normal tendering process जो पाकिस्तान में होता है. We were very fortunate that we won that particular tender. And we then decided to build the National Incubation Center in the premises that you see today, which is a government building.
State of the art. I mean, it's always a pleasure coming there, meeting people. So, Parvez, I mean, we've spoken about your journey, आपका पूरा professional life, personal life. But it must be a great feeling that knowing that you're contributing to the lives of so many young people via the National Incubation Center. I have happened to met some of the most smartest, young people, not just in terms of them being intelligent, but the ideas that flow in and out every day in that place is absolutely phenomenal. I think it's a great achievement. You must feel good about that.
Absolutely. To be honest with you, I think it's really that rather than giving, I'm actually receiving as well. So I feel that every day I have an opportunity to learn something from somebody typically younger than me and somebody who is bringing something new and innovative. So on a daily basis, I feel that I'm benefiting from this experience. Of course, it is rewarding. It is humbling as well. And we're very fortunate that we come and we see these young people, and when we meet them for the first time during the interview process, it's very difficult for them to even express themselves. And the same person, after we work with them with maybe 3 or 4 months, they're much more confident, they have a better product, they have changed their business plan, and now either they are growing their customer base or they're generating revenues, or they've got investment from some third party.
From your experience, you've incubated so many startups. Do you feel that your professional accountants, they get an edge if they have their own startups?
I think to answer your question in short, yes, and I'll share with you why. For 2 reasons. One is because they're professional accountants, that means that they're not students. So therefore, they have had some exposure to the world. The world meaning either the working world, the business world, or training world. So they would have some more exposure and experience, and therefore that would benefit them. Financial discipline in any business is very important.
Of course.
And their understanding of numbers is very important. And I'll just share with you a quick example from our first cohort, one of our startups, and I wouldn't mention the name, but they were 7 engineers from one of our local universities who were in the same class, who were friends, who decided to do a startup. Great idea. Technology was fantastic. It was really great. But when I looked at their business plan, it was pathetic. I mean, even I would suggest that, I was quite surprised, unfortunately, that, how could it be that what we're teaching our children is so poor vis-a-vis the financial side of it. But we worked with them, we built the business plan, we helped them to refine the numbers, etc., etc. So that their capacity for finance was increasing. And as always, 7 people in a startup is not really a good idea.
Yeah.
So over time, they reduced their number. So they ended up with 3 people.
They didn't obviously understand the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. And then we suggested to them, why don't you get other people involved who have a marketing background, who have a financial background, maybe even have a legal background to help you develop this company further. So for us, that was very basic and very simple stuff because we've kind of done that last 30 years. But for them, it's a wow factor. Wow, we never even thought of this.
So, Parvez, top 3 tips that you would like to give the young entrepreneurs, or not just young entrepreneurs, anybody out there who wants to get into the startup business?
I think, first of all, entrepreneurship is not just for the young. In fact, I would encourage people, if they're young, not to be entrepreneurs. I would suggest get a job.
Yeah, and get experience.
Get experience. Get paid for learning on somebody else's money. And then after you have 3 or 4 years experience, chances are you'll become a much better entrepreneur. The other thing is, statistically speaking, global statistics show that the average age of a successful entrepreneur is 45 years. Yeah. So even you have a chance.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think it's important for our middle management, people who are in corporates, people who are in business, the middle management, to also consider entrepreneurship, because I think they would make fantastic entrepreneurs. They have the necessary discipline, background, experience, maybe a little bit of resources, And they would make great entrepreneurs, and we'd love to work with them at the National Incubation Center. So I'd like to reach out to them through this message. I think the last thing I would say is prepare yourself. Entrepreneurship is nothing more than a mindset. So you're familiar with the concept of glass jo hai wo aadha khali hai ya aadha bhara hua hai. Actually, it's the same. There's no difference in the glass. It's how you see it. That's how you view it.
How you perceive it. Totally.
Exactly. So therefore, if you see it as half empty, you need to change your mindset. If you see it as half full, then you need to continue pursuing that mindset. And I often tell people that don't have expectations from other people. This is a real killer. Why should we, it's very easy to blame, especially I'm now talking to our younger generation. It's very easy to blame the country, the government, the environment, our parents, whatever we want. Mere paas 2 crore rupees hoga, so I'm going to do this, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, totally.
And I think those type of people, unless they change their mindset, they will not be successful in anything they do in life. If, on the other side, you look at what you have, and again, a lot of research has been done, is start with whatever you have and make the best of what you have and start small. So just to give you an example, if you wanted to do something, anything, even if it's, starting a new business, for example, there are multiple opportunities for you to learn. Go to people around you, speak to them. Go to Google, go to YouTube. These are my 2 favorite places to go. You just type in whatever you want, and you will get multiple learning opportunities, either in the text form, video form, audio form, and you can get it in your local language as well. So I know people, I've heard of people who have actually built planes in Peshawar just by watching YouTube videos. So it just shows you how passionate people are.
It's about making that effort, and it's an investment that you're making, in something that you're passionate about. And that's a great place.
Correct. And making the effort, I would like to share a story with you. I was at a university last week. We had about 100 young students in their final year. And, I shared with them, what are the chances of them getting a job? And every year, less than 10% of our graduates get jobs. That's the capacity that we have in Pakistan. And in that room, I said that only 10 of you will get jobs. What about the other 90%, 90 people? Unless you have rich parents willing to take care of you, you're in trouble. And what I realized was that these people were not even willing to make the effort themselves. In fact, one individual was sleeping through the program. I mean, it must have been really boring for him to have gone to sleep. But that's the level of interest. So on the one hand, they don't make the effort. And on the other hand, they have such high expectations that mujhe to CEO lagna chahiye.
It's the mindset, Parvez. I mean, as you have mentioned, we really need to, this is something that I have learned throughout my career is the mindset.
And for those people, I would also like to give them this message that halat mulk ke sabke ek jaise hai, sabke liye barabar hai. So why is it that some people are successful within that same environment and some people are not? You have to ask yourself this question.
Well, Parvez Saab, thank you so much, for giving us time and sharing, your thoughts, your stories, and your journey most of all. And I think there is so much for everybody to take. To take away from the journey, your own personal journey that you have shared. And thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.